Hello there, everyone. Dr. Tharp here, and I am here tonight. As I say every single night, I'm on a mission to help women, everyone, but women especially, women who look just like me, to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes naturally. One of the big things I wanted to talk about tonight is I wanted to talk about why it's important to take steps to reverse your prediabetes or diabetes quickly. Right? Why is it urgent? And that's mainly because diabetes is not a benign disease. It's not just I have high blood sugars and that's it. Type 2 diabetes causes significant symptoms. It causes real dysfunction in your body. And very likely, if you're here, if you're tuning in now, you know that dysfunction very well. The dangerous thing about the dysfunction that's happening is you feel it in symptoms. You feel sluggish, you're gaining weight, it's hard to lose weight, you're having trouble sleeping, you're peeing all the time, you feel thirsty all the time. You're having real symptoms. You might be having numbness or tingling in your hands and feet, but the symptoms you're feeling also translate to even bigger symptoms, and those are the symptoms, that the damage that's occurring within the body. That is even more troublesome. And that is where the complications come in. And that is why it's urgent. The day you get the diagnosis, you treat it with urgency. And the downside with something called a hemoglobin A1C, some of you here might know exactly what that is. You've been told your hemoglobin A1C is high. At first, you were anxious about it. You know, your doctor gave you 3 months to fix the number. But the problem with an hemoglobin A1C is that that's a number in time. Okay. That number that you got 2, 3 months ago is a number that told you what your blood sugars did the prior 3 months to that. And there is a danger in that, right? And the danger there is that you fall back into procrastination. After you did that initial intermittent fast, or you drank that cinnamon tea for a month and it didn't make a difference, you went on a diet and then you fell back into your normal eating habits, and you get comfortable again, right? Because the A1C was back there. You're not seeing what your blood sugars are doing day to day. And that is what's especially dangerous with with just focusing on a hemoglobin A1C and not focusing on what your blood sugars are doing day to day. And the reality is, if you got that A1C 3 months ago, very likely that A1C is worse today and that blood sugar is worse today. So a question I get very frequently is, should you invest in a continuous glucose monitor? I get that question very frequently. Some call it a CGM. And my answer to that is, if you can, you should, because it's an important wake up call to understand exactly what your blood sugars are doing. It continues to add that drive and that urgency, because when you know what your blood sugars are, you know what's happening internally. You understand why you're having the symptoms you're having, why you're feeling so fatigued, why you're having trouble losing weight, why you're gaining weight around the belly. You're starting to understand more when you see in real time what your blood sugars are doing. If you don't want to invest in a continuous glucose monitor, then it is important to at least check your blood sugars, your fasting blood sugars in the morning, because again, that could be a significant wake up call. And that is actually something that I encourage my clients to do. That if they come in with a hemoglobin A1C that's right there, just before diabetes, it's really important to check the blood sugars, so that that wake up call is there. So when that temptation to procrastinate, or that temptation to put things off set in, and then you get that blood sugar of 120 in the morning, then you realize the urgency. And so that's why I put this chart here, is so that you can see that after, once the blood sugar falls in that abnormal range, it is doing damage to your body. You are feeling symptoms. So no, it's not just age. No, it's not, you're just you just get tired as we age. We lose energy as we age. It's not just age. It's the fact that now you have a disease that's wreaking havoc on your body. So it's really important to address it ASAP. So I wanted to break down the ranges and the symptoms that you could be experiencing for each range that you fall within. And just remember, some people, this is not an absolute. Some people will start to have more significant symptoms at the lower range. So this doesn't apply to everyone. This is just generally what could be happening. But your blood sugar could be 110 and you could be having nerve damage. You could be experiencing neuropathy. You could start to develop vision issues. So it is important to know what your blood sugars are doing so that you can have more of an understanding of what your blood sugar ranges are. So, for example, when you're falling within the 100 to 109 range, you are going to feel more tired. You're going to have cravings for sugar. You're going to experience that afternoon slump. So the reason you're craving more sugar is because your body, you're insulin resistant, right? So insulin resistance is where your cells are not using insulin. It's not allowing insulin to open it up so it can use glucose for sugar. So what's happening is you have a lot of sugar floating around in your blood, but your body can't use it because it's not working with insulin. So therefore, you still have that energy slump. And so what does your body tell you to do in that dysfunction? It tells you eat more. It's trying to get that energy going. And unfortunately, it can't. So you eat more sugar, you eat something sweet, something that's heavy in carbs in an attempt to get your energy up. And then that makes a blood sugar issue worse. So, it's really, again, important to understand what's happening in your body so that you can counteract it. So you're insulin resistant, you go through those afternoon slumps, you start to develop the belly fat. So again, if you see that your blood sugars are hovering just above 100, very likely you're struggling with excess belly fat. And again, that is the sign of your insulin resistance. You have lots of insulin floating around. Your body can't use it. And what does insulin tell your body to do? It tells your body to store fat. And so that is why you're gaining more and more weight. And now your pancreas is working overtime, right? Because your pancreas doesn't realize that you have all that insulin out there. It just sees the glucose. And so it's trying desperately to pump out more and more insulin in an effort to get your cells to use glucose. So your pancreas is now working overtime. So, yes, your blood sugars are slightly high. Your doctor told you, oh, your blood sugars are slightly high. We'll watch it. But you might not feel any overt symptoms initially, except for the fatigue and the cravings. And you talk yourself into it's just age. And the reality is, as we age, we should not be feeling bad, right? It means we're doing something wrong. It means we're not doing something right for our bodies. We're not giving our bodies what it needs. So if you're aging and you start to notice low energy, you're tired, don't just blame it on age and go with the flow. It means something is wrong. And in this case, we're talking about insulin resistance, and you can do something about it. And of course, with greater and greater amount of insulin flowing around with more fat on your body, then you start to develop that low grade inflammation. And we know that inflammation causes a whole nother amount of havoc in the body. So now we sit, we're procrastinating, we sit in action, we watch our blood sugars just slightly high, but we're getting by. So we don't do anything about it. You go back to your doctor, and now your doctor is telling you your A1C is even higher. So 3 months ago, your A1C was 5.7, just above that abnormal range. You were procrastinating. You tried some things initially, it didn't work out. You did some Google searches, didn't work out. You went back to your regular routine, and now you're back in your doctor's office and you're hearing your A1C is about 6.2, 6.3. It went up. Now your doctor is discussing with you starting metformin, right? Because no, nobody told you exactly what to do when you got that initial diagnosis, right? You tried on your own, it didn't work. The doctor only has so much time in the office, right? They're not going to walk you through it either. So the next best thing is medication. And some of you might know this, how this works firsthand. I actually had someone reach out personally, very, very touching message that I got, because um, it played out exactly like this for her. Okay. Her doctor is unable to walk her through what she needs. She feels hopeless about what direction she's going to go in. She's not quite sure what to do. She's scared, right? Because she understands the urgency of addressing the blood sugars. But what I say is don't become paralyzed in fear. Don't become paralyzed in it. Take action. Just know that the power is all there within your hands. But that action entails reaching out to someone who can walk you through that process. And of course, that's why I started this initiative, right? That's why I started the Reverse Now initiative, is to fill that void. So again, don't become paralyzed in helplessness. You can do something about it. You just have to take those steps. Now, and it's not easy to be vulnerable, okay? And some people view getting help as being vulnerable. It's actually a sign of strength. So just know that you have all the cards in your hands. You just have to use them. So now your doctor is talking to you about starting metformin. Some of you may be on metformin right now. And so you go ahead, you start the metformin. Right now, your symptoms are a little bit worse. You're noticing that you're urinating more, that now you're gaining even more weight. You know, you might notice hormone related changes, mood swings. You might notice that, that you're more sluggish, brain fog. So, these are all the symptoms that you initially had are now getting worse. And you're on the metformin, but guess what? You're on the metformin, but you're not really taking the appropriate action. You don't know how. And your assumption is, well, I'm on metformin and now this is going to do it for me. But again, it does not happen that way. Medications are about it's really a band-aid, right? Medications are there to just kind of temporarily deal with the issue, but it's not getting to the root cause. So even though you're on the medication, you're taking it religiously, but you realize that things still aren't getting any better. You're back in the doctor's office 6 months later, and now your blood sugars are even higher. Now you're really feeling frustrated, right? Because you took the medication as prescribed, but now you're hearing your numbers are worse, you've gained more weight. And at this point, you're frustrated, right? Again, you're not getting to the root cause. And this is how you end up on two medications. Okay, this is how you end up on metformin and Jardiance. This is how you end up on metformin and glipizide. So this is how you end up on additional medications, right? And now the dependence on medication has begun because you're not getting to the root cause. And again, your doctor does not have that time to walk you through that process. Okay. So, again, it's all about taking the right action to address those blood sugars. And so this cycle continues, right? You might be okay for a couple of years on the metformin or on two medications. You might be doing just fine. And then, boom, they drop the bomb on you 2 years down the line, a year from now, that now your blood sugars are creeping up again. And you feel that you've made changes and that's not working. Okay. So this is a vicious cycle where you started out with one medication, it maybe worked for a little while, and then boom, a year later, numbers are worse. Then you're on your second medication. And then boom, 6 months later, you're on your second. And then the cycle continues until you find yourself on insulin. So it's really important from the get-go to, once you get that diagnosis that your blood sugars are high, to treat it urgently. Because if you know what I know, and again, that's why I do what I do, because most people don't know, I can see into your future. Okay. I know what happens when you get that initial diagnosis and you don't do anything about it. I see what happens. I do it every day. I see what eventually happens. Okay. You end up on insulin, you end up with complications. So it's really important to start today, because complications 3 years down the line could happen. And for some people, it happens sooner. So it's really important to understand what changes to make. And you're very likely your primary care doctor is not going to do that, because primary care doctors are spending 15 minutes. I called to schedule my own wellness visit with my primary care doctor today. And I asked how long my visit was, and my visit for a wellness check is 15 minutes. How can anyone address my wellness in 15 minutes? So, as a patient, I'm appalled by those numbers. No kind of meaningful discussion can happen in 15 minutes. You cannot get any instructions on what to do in 15 minutes. Okay, I know exactly what you're going through when you go to your doctors. There's just no time. There's only time to write that prescription. 15 minutes is enough time to say the blood sugars are high. We need to put you on another medication. And that's that, right? There is no time for you to push back, right? You try to push back, and there's not even time to discuss how you feel about it, or what is your hesitation, what is your concern about the medication. Okay, so I experienced that as a patient, but I'm a doctor too. I've worked within that system, and I understand that the frustration, even from the physician side, of not having that time to help my patients through. That is why I branched off and do what I do today. It's because that is the void that we need to fill to truly make people healthy. We have to give you the power that you need, the power of knowledge that you need to truly beat the disease. So, what ends up happening in this vicious cycle, right, is that over time you start to think it's not reversible. Over time, you start to think it's my age. It just comes with age. Or you start to say, oh, it just runs in the family. So it was bound to happen. And that is not the reality. Type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, is a treatable disease, completely reversible with the right approach. You have to have the right strategy though. Okay. And that is where you should invest your time, your effort. If you're not willing to do that, then go with the medications. But if you're someone who is determined not to become reliant on medications, then you must invest in the right strategy. Otherwise, you're wasting time. So if we continue down our chart, you will see that the blood sugars are climbing, the complications get worse and worse and worse. And the cycle that I explained continues and continues, right? The cycle of going to your doctor, blood sugars are higher, you get another med, and you get another med. Then you end up on insulin. Then guess what happens with insulin? Now the insulin doses are getting higher. And remember what insulin does. When you put insulin into your body, insulin makes you gain weight. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So that is why some people complain about gaining weight after they started insulin. Okay. Because now, again, you started insulin, but you're not taking care of the root cause. You're not eating well. You're not moving your body the way you should be. And therefore, the insulin just makes you gain weight, and it just temporarily gets that blood sugar down, right? Does insulin fix the problem? No. You're putting insulin into your body to drive the blood sugars down. And if you're on short acting insulin, you're taking it morning, before breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the short acting. And then you rely on a nighttime one that you're going to inject to get those insulin, to give you that steady state of insulin in your blood. So you're just get pumping insulin into your body without taking care of the root cause. And that is the vicious cycle that happens with medications, period. The day you start that medication without taking the right strategic changes, without implementing the lifestyle changes, you've then sentenced yourself to dependence on medications, period. And so, do these medications delay the onset of complications? It might. It might, because for a temporary period, it's keeping the blood sugars somewhat controlled until it doesn't work anymore, right? So there might be a delay in complications, but what ends up happening is it catches up. So now, as the blood sugars get higher and higher, you started out with the what we might say milder symptoms. For some people, they're not so mild, right? It really interferes with day-to-day life. The fatigue, the brain fog, the frequent urination, the constant cravings, the weight gain. Those are just the symptoms that some people even just write off as age. And that actually makes me pretty sad. That's tragic, because you write it off as age and then you're giving to being miserable. And the reality is, as we age, we deserve to have all the energy we want. We deserve to do more, right? Because we've earned it. Now you're approaching retirement and you can't do the things you dreamed of doing because you've given in to the aging process. You don't have to do that. So now you start off with these milder symptoms. The blood sugar keeps going up, and now you're feeling the more significant symptoms, we'll call them, right? You're having the numbness and tingling. Now your doctor is telling you, oh, the kidney is abnormal, right? Now they're saying, oh, your kidney number is creeping up. Let's keep an eye on it. Now, if you ever hear that, as someone with diabetes, alarm bells should be blaring in your head. Alarm bells should be blaring if your doctor tells you your kidney function is abnormal. Let's watch it, right? You get that same approach that you got when you heard your blood sugars were high. Your kidney number is abnormal, but we'll keep an eye on it, right? That's what you get. Then you hear, oh, then you might hear, just watch the salt, watch your blood pressure. You just get some vague advice. And you walk away thinking, well, if we're keeping an eye on it, it couldn't be that bad. But the reality is, it is that bad. Now, alarm bells should be going off if you're hearing that your kidney number is abnormal. Because remember, type 2 diabetes is the number one cause of kidney failure in this country. It's the number one reason why people are on dialysis. So if you're a diabetic, or even if you're pre-diabetic and you're hearing that your kidney number is abnormal, again, alarm bells should be going off. Now, it's critical that you take charge, right? It's critical that you take the steps that you need to take to address it. Because when your kidney is abnormal, then guess what? Guess what comes next? Now you're going to be starting medications for renal protection, right? That's what we call it in medical terms, renal protection. So now you're starting lisinopril or losartan in an effort to protect your kidneys. Now you're starting yet another medication, right? Now you're starting a medication to protect the kidneys from getting worse. That's the explanation for starting the medication. That's what the research tells us, is those medications slows the progression of kidney disease. But do you actually get to the root cause? Are you addressing your blood sugars? Are you reversing your diabetes, the number one reason that you're now having kidney disease? And once you develop chronic kidney disease, it's irreversible. The damage is done. So the goal becomes preserving your kidneys, because that is not reversible. So that is why, if you're hearing your kidney function is abnormal, alarm bells should be going off. If you are feeling numbness and tingling in your hands and feet, alarm bells should be going off. Because that means that the high blood sugars are poisoning the nerve endings in your hands and your feet. If it's doing that, then very likely it's causing damage to your internal organs like your kidneys and your eyes. It's stiffening the blood vessels. So your blood vessels are becoming stiff, and guess what happens when they become stiff? Your blood pressure starts to rise. So many of you here who are struggling with type 2 diabetes are struggling with high blood pressure. You're already on a high blood pressure medication. In addition to that, your blood vessels are now becoming stiff because you're struggling with type 2 diabetes. You also have high cholesterol. So now that plaque is building up in those stiff blood vessels. And guess what? That is the perfect storm for. Now you are the perfect storm for strokes and heart attacks, right? So now we're really approaching the danger zone. And so ultimately, when you get that diagnosis of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, you should understand that that is the path. That is the path that you are likely on. You are on your way to more significant disease. If you are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and you're already on a cholesterol pill and you're already on a blood pressure pill, alarm bells should be blaring again, because now you are the perfect storm. Okay. Now you are the perfect storm for complications, and very likely that damage is happening within your body. So it's really urgent, and it's really important to have the right strategy. And that is why I developed the Reverse Her Challenge, Reverse Now initiative, and specifically for women, one geared specifically for women, women who look just like me, because women just like me, women of color, are disproportionately affected. The other day I was in the hospital setting, and I walked into the dialysis room, and a majority of those people in the dialysis room were people of color. They were people of color. And very likely, a majority of those people in the room had diabetes, without a doubt. Okay, they're in that dialysis room. Not to mention, they're in the hospital for a reason as well, right? Many of them are in the hospital for complications related to type 2 diabetes. But I walked into that dialysis room, and a majority of them were people of color. So women of color are disproportionately affected by this disease. And that's what I'm sick of seeing. I'm sick of seeing that. I want women of color, women who look just like me, I want to empower you to take back our health, because we are so strong. We deal with so much. We're hardworking. We deal with a lot. We deserve good health. We deserve it, right? So this is why I do what I do, right? This is why I established the Reverse Now Challenge, is because we do not have the support that we need to get us to the point, right? To get us from prediabetes to health, to get us from type 2 diabetes to health. We don't have that support. So the Reverse Her Challenge is meant specifically for that reason, to fill that void. Now, another step that I have taken, for those of you, again, you never want to procrastinate, right? Procrastination is our enemy. So if you are sitting on high blood sugars, on kidney disease, on nerve damage, if you're sitting on blurry vision, if you're sitting on fatigue, on constant urination, on insomnia, if you are sleeping, if you are sitting on that in procrastination, again, I want to urge you, take action and take the right strategy. So don't go for your intermittent fasting. That's not going to do it. I'm going to debunk that right now. Intermittent fasting is not going to get you out of type 2 diabetes. For some people, it can make things worse. And a lot of the women I work with come to me, they've either tried that and it failed, or they come to me doing intermittent fasting, and we immediately get rid of that approach. If you're going to fast, fasting at night is best. That's the first thing. Teas are not going to do this. Okay, so if you're investing in a bush tea, if you're investing in cinnamon tea, there was someone on my page who left a cocktail that supposedly worked for her. She was on a starvation diet and she left a cocktail of some kind of a tea, a mixture. That's not going to work. Period. No amount of tea is going to reverse prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. So I'm going to debunk that right now. The third is that berberine, for example, supplements, berberine supplements is not going to do it. Okay, that is not going to reverse your pre-diabetes. It's not. No supplement. So if you're on Amazon searching, you got that diagnosis and you get home, you don't have a strategy, your doctor didn't tell you what to do. You get home and you're determined to get your numbers down. And your instinct is to search Amazon for a diabetic supplement that's going to reverse diabetes. I'm going to tell you, whatever comes up, it's not going to work. No supplement is going to work. The approach that I talk about is what works, but it has to be done in a certain way. I call it a system, right? For example, I was having a discussion with one of my clients who had great success. We were really reflecting on her journey, right? Her 3-month journey through the program. We were talking about the things she tried. And you know what she said to me, and it struck home, is that she said, sometimes we search so hard. We search so hard that we don't realize how obvious the solution is. And it's so true. So many of the women I work with, they've searched. All the things that I just mentioned, supplements, teas, they tried and it didn't work. They're searching too hard. The approach that I encourage, and if you want to look back at my prior lives, I do lots of lives talking about the what to do, your diet mainly, right? Diet is a big part of it. I call it a system. There's other things we have to keep in mind, but diet is a lot of it. We spend a lot of time cleaning up the diet. Because if your goal is to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, your food becomes your medicine. And we don't do it in a way that you feel starved. We don't do it in a way that you feel restricted. We don't do it in a way that you feel faint. And no, you're not miserable, right? That's why intermittent fasting is miserable, right? We don't aim to be miserable. We aim to be healthy, lots of energy. You want to feel vibrant by the end of it. You don't want to go on another crash diet. So again, it's really important to act, but act with the right strategy. Don't waste your time. Don't waste another 3 months taking berberine supplements, thinking that when you get back to your doctor to check your A1C, it's going to be better. It is not. Not if you are not addressing the root cause. And berberine supplements, cinnamon tea, any kind of bush tea, no amount of supplement, cocktail, tea, fasting is going to change your blood sugars. Okay. It's all about eating the right thing, treating your food as medicine, and everything you eat serves a purpose to control blood sugars, to nourish your body, to energize your body. That is what we focus on. So for those of you who want to take some action, who are ready to move away from procrastination, I am here. And you can simply just click the link in my bio to book a free 15-minute discovery call so that we can make sure that you are the right fit. Because the women I work with are the women who are serious. We want to make sure you are serious, you are ready to make change. So the goal of that call is not to convince you to make change. You have to be ready to make change. That call is just there to discuss our strategy with you a little bit more and to make sure that that strategy fits you and that you will fit into my coaching program and my community. That's what that call is there for. So if you are ready ready to make change. You're ready to treat this with urgency. You're ready to get away from medications, right? You're ready to give yourself that fighting chance, to give your future that fighting chance. Then you need to take a step, the right steps that will work. Okay. Otherwise, if you are for some reason still thinking about it, or if you want some kind of a resource, you're not quite ready, but you want some kind of a resource, then that is why I formulated the free Jumpstart Kit. It's a Jumpstart guide, and that's exactly what it is. It's a jumpstart. Okay, it's something to get you started. And so it's there as well, the link in my bio. You click that link and you can go ahead and access the free Jumpstart Kit. You do have to fill out a form in order to access the app that I have it on. But once you get in there, make sure that you utilize the quizzes to see where you fall. Now, with the quizzes, very likely you might score well because, again, a lot of the women I work with have done the obvious things. They've cut out sugar, they've cut out soda, they've cut out juice, they've cut out white rice, they've cut out white bread. And that's why they're so frustrated, because they've done all the right things and yet it's still not working. So you might score very well on the quizzes. Most women score on the intermediate level, which means you're doing okay, you're getting by. And so do the quizzes, you'll get some insight, you'll get an idea of what needs to change, and then take advantage of that grocery list that's there. That grocery list will help you to assess your kitchen. Is your kitchen equipped for blood sugar control? Is it equipped to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? So take a look, watch the videos, take a look at the quizzes, do the quizzes, gain the insight that you need from the quizzes, and then move on to the grocery list and how you can revamp your kitchen so it matches your goal, right? And the goal is to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes and to do it naturally, to spare yourself the complications, the discomfort. Again, you should not, as we age, we shouldn't be blaming symptoms on age. We should be pushing back on that. And so you deserve that. Nobody should tell you that because you're aging, that nobody should brush it off and say it's just age or it's just your hormones. And I know for a fact that that's something you might be hearing from your primary care doctor, right? Just brushing things off. It's age, just take the medications. There's more that you can do about it. So if you want a starting point, then that's a good starting point, is to access the Jumpstart. There's also a meal plan there. You use that meal plan to build, you can use it to build out a meal plan for yourself in the week. Feel free to make tweaks to it. If you don't like certain ingredients on the meal plan, then you can always make substitutions. I don't go into necessarily the seasoning, so you can season your protein to your liking, but make tweaks. But the meal plan there is a good starting point as well. And again, there's just no other way around it. It really comes down to your nutrition. So with that, I'm not going to jump into the formula, but look back at my other lives. I'm on YouTube. You can check out the YouTube where I have a series of lives there. And you can, on those lives, you can, see, you can watch the ones where I go over a little bit more detail, nutrition, the breakdown of nutrition, what your nutrition should look like. I give lots of tips there. So that is a resource that you can use. So use those resources. Go to the YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube. So that way, whenever I'm posting videos or whenever I'm live, that you can tune in and get additional pointers. So with that, I'm going to close off. But I'm always open to questions, comments. If you're struggling with a particular area, it doesn't even have to be related to this live. You can go ahead and comment, and I can address that question. If you don't want to address or post any questions here, you can always DM me and I can reach out to you that way. And you can always leave questions or topic suggestions so that I can cover it for everyone. Because everyone, if you have the question, then very likely there's someone else who has that question or has that struggle. So with that, I am going to close off. If there are there any questions? If there are no questions, then I'm going to go ahead and close off, but feel free to reach out anytime. I am here for you. Okay, have a good night.